Welcome home to St. Anne's. We want you to know that you're welcome to join us at 10 a.m. on Sundays. Please be sure to hit subscribe to receive our sermons. We can't wait to meet you.
Take me a minute to get there. You may as well sit down. Fun readings today, no? Happy gospel. Well, let's talk about it because you guys know my stance. Can anyone say the line that I always say? Oh, that too. Three-legged stool. But yes, I heard it over here. When scripture is difficult, wrestle with it until you get a blessing. And because I think when it comes, especially for us as preachers, because we want to make you guys happy, we really do. They say happy wife, happy life. No, that's not true. Happy congregation, happy clergy. That's the real truth. When you guys are happy, I'm happy because I'm usually well caffeinated. But not really, because that's really not the point, is it? Happy congregation is not the point at all. Good Christians is the point. And usually good Christians are not happy Christians. So, but let's talk about it, because these are difficult readings. And so the gut reaction for all of us is when something is difficult, we avoid it, right? That's kind of our gut reaction. And clergy are no different than anyone else. When things are difficult, we have a tendency to avoid them. But that's really not the point. When things are uncomfortable, that's probably when we most need to pay attention to them. So our readings today really focus on the law. And the law can be a tricky spot for us as Christians, especially for us who tend to be, I don't want to make gross generalizations, but I'm going to, so apologies. We tend to be a little bit more progressive. Episcopalians tend to be a little bit more progressive, and so the law is a tricky, sticky subject when it comes to Christianity in general, because the New Testament gets sticky, and then for us as progressive Christians, because we tend to have reacted quite a bit to the fact that the law gets used as a weapon. The law gets weaponized a lot. Scripture gets weaponized a lot and is used to harm people. And so instead of really digging into that and figuring out what's going on, we tend to go, ooh, let's just steer clear of that. But the reality is the law is not a weapon. Somebody need to get that? That's fine. If it's God, please answer it. Like, I want to know before I say something really, really bad. So the law. Let's talk about the law because, like I said, especially for us in our current culture, the law gets weaponized and it's used to harm people. And would you believe that that's what all of this is actually about? That's what has Jesus really, really ticked off. You're like, wait, what? How come nobody's ever cited this piece of scripture to me before? Funny, they haven't, have they? You don't hear this one very often, do you? I wonder why. Because weaponizing scripture is a huge sin. That is actually taking the Lord's name in vain. We want to say it's like if somebody says, God damn it, and we get all up in arms, right? You can't say that. It has nothing to do with taking the Lord's name in vain. Nothing. Would you like to know what taking the Lord's name in vain is? It's using God to weaponize and harm people. Other people. Because anybody ever weaponize scripture or harm themselves? Heck no. No. We're worried about those other people over there. The ones that we don't like. You know, those people. Those are the ones we're going to weaponize scripture to hurt. That is a huge, awful, bad sin. And that's why Jesus is angry. There are only a few times in Scripture when Jesus gets really, really angry. And I think it's important to notice when Jesus gets angry. One, Jesus does get angry. Okay, let's start with that. Jesus is not some cushy little marshmallow riding around on a unicorn, making s'mores for everybody out of clouds. That's not happening. That's not Jesus. So let's first reclaim Jesus. Jesus does get mad sometimes. I'll tell you when Jesus doesn't get mad. Jesus doesn't get mad about other people who are sinners. Jesus doesn't get mad about that. When does Jesus get mad? Go back, look at it. You got it right in front of you. Why is Jesus mad? What? Yeah, he's not allowed to do good. And there's a very specific line here that I absolutely love. He's angry because of their hardness of heart, their cruelty to one another. That's why Jesus is angry. Jesus isn't angry about what people are doing on the Sabbath. Jesus isn't worried about whether or not people are following the law all the time. Jesus is angry because we are cruel. I'm going to say that again because it's so very, very, very important. Jesus isn't angry about sinning. Jesus isn't angry about breaking the law. Jesus is angry because we're cruel. And cruel is such an important word, and I really want us to hang on to that word. Because in a time when our cruelty is something that we crave, we are fed by our cruelty. It feels powerful and it feels good, right? And you know it does. Anyone else felt cruel this week? I did. Anyone else start counting off those numbers and go, guilty, 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 guilty? I mean, anyone else felt cruel? I did. I did. And that is where I messed up. When we feel righteousness in our cruelty, when we enjoy other people squirming, that's when Jesus gets angry. The law is a tool. Jesus makes it very, very clear. The law is a tool meant to help us. The reason we know to stop at stop signs is not because the law is to stop at stop signs. The law exists to stop at stop signs because we recognize the humanity of other people and say, you get a turn too. And your safety matters just as much as my safety matters. And I will stop at the crosswalk. And I will stop when another car needs to go. It has nothing to do with me being worried about a police officer catching me. It shouldn't. If that's the reason we're following the law, we missed it. The reason the law exists is because we as a society say other people matter just as much as we matter. And there is no room for cruelty or hate in a society that is successful. There isn't. There just simply isn't. Jesus isn't mad because somebody jaywalked. I don't care if you jaywalk. God doesn't care if you jaywalk. Thank you. Okay, jaywalking. Jaywalking is illegal. You're supposed to cross at the crosswalk. Those of us who lived in Chicago in graduate school can tell you jaywalking is not a sin. It's a survival mechanism. So you're supposed to cross the crosswalk if you're walking. But if you don't cross the crosswalk, that's jaywalking. It's illegal. So let's say you don't want to go all the way down to the stop sign because it's like half a block away, and you're like, I don't want to do that. But you decide to cross just in the middle. Yeah. Criminal! The shame is upon you. I guess. I don't know. As long as you took your turn, God doesn't care. But really, we get really hopped up on laws and rules and stuff, right? Especially in Scripture, we use it. We say, well, and we get into these like left versus right debates too. Like one group says, well, you know, it says that you can't treat a man as you would a woman. So therefore, homosexuality is a sin. And then somebody else says, well, 2 lines later it says you can't wear mixed fabrics, and that's an abomination, and you should die. And then somebody's like, yeah, but like 2 lines later it says that you can't talk badly about an adult or your parent or whatever, and that's an abomination, you should die. And pretty soon we're just abominating each other, right? We're like, who's dying first? And there's just like a pile of rocks and we're flinging them. None of that's the point. I can proof text you. You can proof text me all day long. And I promise you, none of us will get out alive. Nobody will. But we all miss the point. The point of the law was to be a tool to care for one another, to love one another. It's supposed to be how we live out God's commandments for love, and how we live out how do we care for one another in our community. That's what it's really about. But we messed it up, and we twisted it and moved it around and all sorts of weird things, so it's nothing that it was ever meant to be. And suddenly it's become a thing in which we use cruelty towards each other. It has now been weaponized to harm one another. Can you see how much we've messed up? Can you see how badly we've gotten it? And we've all gotten it wrong. Every single one of us. This is not an us versus them. This is a whoops, we all messed it up. And so when Jesus is looking angry at all of us, because suddenly we missed the point. There is no space for cruelty in God's world. None. Not cruelty towards one another, not cruelty towards God's creation. There is no space for cruelty at all. That's really the whole message of all of this. And I don't really have a landing on this sermon. I mean, you guys know that about me. I never know how to land a sermon. I'm really, really terrible at landing sermons. But I will give us this challenge. I will give all of us this challenge. When you feel the urge to crow, shut up. It's that simple. Don't be Big Red is exactly right. Terry ain't here. He's with the baby. Terry can tell you what happened to Big Red. Because Big Red, have I told you guys the story of Big Red? All right. We got time for some chicken chat, right? We got chicken chat time? Okay, chicken chat time. Meg grew up on a farm. Meg doesn't like chickens. I don't like chickens. They're rats with feathers. I don't like chickens. They're cruel. Cool? Ew, no, they're not. They're awful. They're gross. But my children, when I said, okay, if I'm going to live in Missouri forever, which clearly I am, I'm never getting out. Do you guys know we're going on year 12 of you being stuck with me? Year 12 in August. No, I don't know if I would applaud that or, give you all shots. I don't know what to do. Anyway, I said to my spouse, clearly we're in Missouri for the long haul, but Meg's not living in Eagle Creek for the long haul. I don't do well with neighbors. Can you imagine living next to me? Can you? Just imagine for a moment, if you can, living next door to me. I wouldn't. It's not a good thing. My poor neighbors. Anyway, I said, okay, we got to move. And the girl said, that's fine, but when we move out to the country, we want chickens. I said, I could handle 5. 5 hens, that's not bad. Because my dad adored poultry, so he had hordes of poultry. And I think to myself, 5. I can handle 5 hens. I got this. God bless Terry. Terry's not here, so I can tell this story. Terry shows up with a box, and he says, Meg, I know you only wanted 5 hens, but these were born today, and I can't guarantee what sex they are. So I got to 11. But some will die. They won't all live. They lived. They all lived in my back room because they're babies. They have to be inside, right? They all lived. And then a sorority sister of mine said, she calls me up and she says, Meg, we live in town in Springfield, and we can't have roosters. We have Hey Hey. Hey Hey's not really a rooster, really, but like I don't want to kill him. Those of you who have been to my house may have met Hey Hey. Hey Hey is not a rooster. Hey Hey is a Hey Hey. Hey Hey doesn't lay eggs, but Hey Hey doesn't fertilize eggs either. Hey Hey is just Hey Hey. Well, one of those 11 ended up being a rooster, and he kind of snuck through. And I didn't want any chickens. And let me tell you, Big Red was about this big. He's a big, big chicken. She was going to say something else, but they're kids. He's a big chicken. And Wesley says, yeah, but like you can't persecute him just because he's a rooster. I said, yeah, I can. He says, no, that's not fair. I said, So Hey Hey got a reprieve. But then he started picking on Big Red. Big Red is the big rooster. He starts picking on Hey, and I said, oh, no. So Big Red went to the farm, and Hey Hey is still there, but Big Red is no longer there. Hence the reference to don't be a Big Red, because Big Red. Anyway, that's probably not how I should have landed a sermon. I'm not even sure what you guys got out of this sermon, but chickens. 5 hens. 5 hens is great.
We want you to
11?
know that you're welcome to join us at 10 a.m. on Sundays. Please be sure to hit
I know, which is
subscribe
why
to
you guys
receive our
always have
sermons.
eggs.
We can't wait to meet you.